upcoming NASCAR season opener at Daytona, it's important that we also mention the 24-hour IMSA race that took place last weekend at the Daytona, using part of that tri-oval famous NASCAR track, but also using the infield circuit to create a little bit more of a challenging track. Left and right turns for the drivers, you know. But the Daytona 24-hour, it's a really, really cool event. It's a bit like the World Endurance Championship. It's that sort of format, which means you have 4 different classes of cars all racing on track at the same time, and actually 5 different classes of drivers, because you have the GT cars split into pro and amateur categories. So it sets up a really cool style of racing where you have the top class of car being this sort of Le Mans style prototype, really massive bodywork, cockpit right in the middle, but not open wheel, similar speeds to that of a Formula One car, but it's achieving them in a very, very different way with its bodywork. Much more aerodynamically efficient, designed to be more protected, I suppose, a little bit more room to rub, a little bit more bodywork to lose. You can afford to have a little bit more contact, you know, a bit less sensitive to that than an open wheel car would be when you have that closed wheel format, you know, more bodywork to allow rubbing up against curbs and barriers and stuff. But also the internal engineering of them, much more targeted at being able to race for 24 hours. You have refueling and tyre stop strategy, completely different to that of a Formula One race. A little bit hard to keep track of throughout the whole 24-hour period, but I think the broadcast team did a really good job keeping people informed. It was really an action-packed race. Winning the race was Helio Castro Neves with the Meyer Shank Racing team. His teammates and him were able to put together a really brilliant challenge throughout that 24-hour period. And if Helio Castro Neves rings a bell, it's because he won the Indy 500 for his 4th time in his career in 2021 with the same Meyer Shank team. So he's looking to work with that team, not only in their IndyCar format and not only in the IndyCar development. He's going to be racing in IndyCar full-time with them this year. But he's also looking at their endurance formats. He was able to take the win at the Rolex 24-hour, which is the official name for the Daytona 24-hour. Castro Neves was able to take the win last year with a different team, and Meyer Shank, after picking him up to do the Indy 500 run in 2021, renewed his sort of opportunity to compete in the Daytona 24-hour again this year. It's been a really, really successful period, you know, 2021 and 2022 already for Helio Castro Neves. And we'll see whether he's able to compete in a season-long championship campaign in the IndyCar series, you know, throughout the year. In IndyCar, we also have Romain Grosjean stepping up to a top team with the Andretti car. He should be putting together a pretty significant championship challenge in IndyCar this year. And if Castro Neves, with all his experience and now this win, 2nd year in a row at the Daytona 24-hour, Castro Neves could well be in that fight too if his car is up to the standards of competition. Also worth mentioning, in the LMP2 class, IndyCar drivers Pato O'Ward and Colton Herta teamed up to bring home a win in their category. So the LMP2 cars, similar looking to the LMP1, a little bit smaller power units, less aggressive aerodynamics, set to be that sort of second-tier car. But you can imagine, you know, if you're a Formula One fan listening to this, it can be hard to imagine what that style of racing is going to look like. But when you're giving a 24-hour period for a race to take place, the idea of sort of blue flags and lapping and stuff, you become almost numb to it, and the task for the driver is to overtake everyone as quickly as possible, and the rules of the discipline of, you know, not holding someone up who's in a higher class car than you or letting them past immediately. It's a little bit more fluid in terms of like, well, if there's a car in front of you, you know, if you're in an LMP1 car, you're flying around at Formula One speeds, high cornering speed. But up the road from you is a Porsche 911 in the GT category being driven maybe even by an amateur driver. It is still your risk as the faster car, the overtaking car. It's part of your skill package as a driver to be able to safely get round the slower moving car. In Formula One, it's almost something where the blue flags are you know, complaining about, oh, this guy's holding me up, give him a blue flag. And it's the role of the guy in front to get out the way immediately. But I think the approach to that, when you have so many cars on track at the same time, and importantly, so many different cars, I think the style of racing is just cooler because you can have 2 Porsches battling it out. We saw this throughout the last sort of 20 minutes of the race. In the Pro GT class, Lawrence Vanthoor and Mathieu Jamet, the 2 Porsches, absolutely titanic battle for about 20-25 minutes You know, they'd been going back and forth with the lead a lot of the 24-hour period, but it really sort of came to fruition in the last 20 minutes where they were just having this absolutely mega battle, corner by corner, trading positions, dive bomb, contact, whatever you like. But they were keeping it fair. You know, they both knew that they were at the end of this incredible 23.5-hour slog to get to the finish of this race, and they weren't about to throw it all away with a DNF or ending up in the curb or a barrier with 5-10 minutes to go. That would be pretty tragic to see, but they were pretty much giving it everything else. I mean, they weren't looking to DNF each other, but they were about as close as you can get to that line without going over it, and it was some really, really cool racing there. But the reason I bring that up is because about what I was saying before about the different categories. When there are two drivers in the slowest category of cars that are having a battle like that, you're an LMP1 car or an LMP2 car coming up behind that battle. Not only do you have one slow-moving car to get past, you have two, and you have two cars that, you know, neither of them want to sacrifice anything to let the LMP2 car or the LMP1 car go past. Neither one wants to get out of the way because for them, it's going to sacrifice a position in their own battle in the GT class. So it creates, I think, a really, really cool dynamic watching it, something that is distinctly different to the racing products we see it in, you know, MotoGP, more of a straight, high drama, sort of 45-minute shootout. What you see is what you get with MotoGP. It's just an absolute straight fight. Some kind of tactics that are taking place in a 24-hour race may be really hard to kind of get your head around in terms of, you know, what the fuel strategy should be or the tyre strategy. Where the pace is going to come from is going to be a little bit harder to work out, a little bit more complicated. And, you know, there might be things that are set up in the first 2 hours of the race, a decision that's made on fuel strategy that isn't going to pay dividends until right at the end because it might be, you know, some kind of undercut play where you're relying on the behavior of other people. It can be hard to sort of digest the reality of everything that's going on. But when you mix that in with the sort of racing product of all these different classes of cars, all these different categories racing together, it's really, really great. And I think the highlights package has been really cool to watch. Drivers developing their skills, you know, drivers from endurance backgrounds, traditional endurance drivers, mixing it in with ex-Formula One drivers, IndyCar drivers, NASCAR drivers, people looking to use these 24-hour endurance races as a way to build up their skills. We touched on last week Max Verstappen in the virtual Le Mans race. He was using that as a genuine, serious opportunity to showcase his driving talent, to lead a team, but also to increase his skills, you know, to get practice in a different category, in a different car, track he doesn't usually race at. It's really important to these drivers to use every opportunity they have to get better, to get faster, to get more thorough, better understanding of the mechanical sympathy of the car, drivers around you, hone that driving style in. The more the better, I think, is the approach. And you're seeing that not only in Max Verstappen's virtual approach, but also a lot of these IndyCar drivers now looking to IMSA, looking to the American Endurance Series, looking to hone their skills there. Really, really cool to see. So congratulations to Helio Castroneves on a really successful 2021 and maybe an even more successful 2022. Starting it off with this win has been really cool. If he can put together another 500 challenge this year in the Indy 500 in the summer, or if he can put together a championship challenge throughout the year. To have him go up alongside O'Ward and Herter and these other IndyCar young stars, Alex Palou, last year's champion. Castroneves, you know, he's an old dog, he's experienced. So that experience, that success, these high level racing performances that he's putting in, despite his age, if he's able to, you know, destabilize the driver market in IndyCar a little bit by showing that maybe these young European junior Formula guys or these young Indy Lights guys might not be all they're cracked up to be, and the old dog can come take some points off of them for the season, is going to be a really, really cool message. And him and Grosjean both sort of representing that. Let's see what happens, but I think it could be a really great storyline. I'm condemned, on my heart is